Well, everyone, welcome back to Box Podcast. And this week, I can confirm with 100% certainty that you are not going to be let down when we say officially it is race week. Yes, we are back. F1 is back. We are in Canada this week. I think everyone is really anticipating this race because we had a lot of upgrades off the back of the big break, the unprecedented big break. And I think we're going to see even more coming into Canada, and we've got the big ones coming from Mercedes, so we're here. So it's going to be very, very interesting. But we have a lot to talk about this week. We are obviously Box Podcast, powered by Box Club. Do check them out in the description. There's a little link to a discounted code for you. But yeah, check us out on social media. You can find us, Box Pod. Why do I always forget that? It's the same every single time. Box Pod on both Instagram and TikTok, where we upload daily and additional content. We love having you there, so do go and join in. We love reacting to comments on all our socials, all our YouTube videos and Spotify, so do comment wherever you are listening or watching us, because it really helps the show and we love engaging with you. Either whether you disagree or agree with us, it's all good. Anyway, I'm not going to waste your time anymore. We've got a lot to dive into, so let's get on with the show.
All right, guys, welcome along. And yet, last week I did say it was race week and I was a week early. However, I am pleased to say, as Luke said earlier, it is race week and I am buzzing. I'm excited for this one. But, Luke, before we get started, I've got a bit of a quiz for you. You know, there's been a lot of comments regarding this year's regulations. Do people like it? Do people not? Well, I got a few facts. Well, not facts for you. I want to test your knowledge. So, number of overtakes.
These never end well for me, might I just add.
Number of overtakes at each Grand Prix. So, a comparison between 2025 and 2026. So, Australia, okay, there were 17 overtakes in 2025. Do you think there was more or less this year?
100% there was more this year.
39 overtakes. Okay. So
that is progress.
Good start. China. 2025, there was 31 overtakes. Were there more or less this year?
Again, I've got to say almost definitely more.
71.
Yeah,
71 overtakes compared to the 31, which is pretty mental. Japan.
Just on that point quickly, because what I would like to draw people's attention to is at that point we drew quite a bit of stick online for saying we kind of rate these new regulations. All we ever wanted as F1 fans, I think, was a little bit more action going on. 17 overtakes in a whole race, right? Australia 2025. That is unacceptable. That's boring. Like that is boring categorically. And I'm not saying the way we've gone is the best way to go. But if we are seeing more overtakes, I think as F1 fans, we are being treated to sort of a more engaging watch.
Right. I mean, I would agree. And this is a mad thing. So Japan 2025, 15 overtakes. Were there more or less this year?
100% more. 15 overtakes around Suzuka, by the way, is wow. Do you know how that's shockingly poor?
This year there was 43.
That's so much better.
So much better. Miami. There was 21 overtakes in 2025. Luke, were there more or less?
Yeah, definitely more.
50
so we doubled it.
Which is mental. So already, and look, we can sit here and go, these regulations are rubbish, or they're not working, or they need tweaking. But from those stats after 4 races, that is evidence that as an F1 fan, we are getting more action on track, which is exactly what we need, exactly what we want. And we did say last year was pretty boring. Yes, okay, you had the championship battle between Oscar, Lando, Max. But on a whole, the races were pretty mundane. This is showing, and it may change, it's only 4 races in, that we're going in the right direction with more overtaking.
Yeah, and I think that was exactly our point when the season started and we got to witness these regulations for the first time. And I mean, come on, you're an F1 fan, you're watching this, you're listening to this. You know that they caused quite a big stir. And I do think a lot of people's criticisms of the regulations are fair. I'm not saying it's the perfect solution, but do I think we've gone in the right direction in terms of more entertaining racing? Because there's a very key distinction between better racing and more entertaining racing. I would say purists would say better racing is, overtaking in corners because like a driver's able to find more grip on one line or whatever. Like they want it to be pure, right? And this isn't a pure form of racing. We've never sat here and said that. But I do think as fans, I definitely prefer where we are now compared to last season.
Yeah, and like, you touched on some of these overtakes, and I know some people will go, they're not legitimate because how can they be legitimate when you lose power down a straight and you get overtaken? I agree with you. I don't disagree.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm hoping once regulations start to settle in, teams start to get used to it a bit more, the FIA will make changes. They've already discussed that. They're going to change that. I think we're going in the right direction. So there's pros and cons to this. We're seeing on track there's more overtakes. Yes, okay. Are some of them legitimate overtakes? You could question that, maybe not. But we are going in the right direction.
Yeah, and look, I know that people will listen to this or it will get clipped up and it'll be put out and it'll be like, oh, Drive to Survive fans, like, you just want to see overtaking or whatever. It's like, yeah, but we are also, like, this argument is not one-dimensional. Don't misconstrue what we're saying for, like, oh, we don't just want better racing. I mean, we've been advocating for, V8 engines since the start of this podcast. So if we can go there, drop the battery power, make the cars smaller, and get better racing through more organic forms, I'm way more behind that than anything else. But the only thing we can compare it to at the moment is where we were last year, or the seasons before that. And I do believe it's more entertaining to watch at the moment.
I agree. I don't know if anyone's seen the news, but Honda reports first annual loss in 70 years. So
really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, news that came out today.
They deserve it.
Honda has posted a 2.68 billion loss over the last year. So apparently the F1 project is not directly affected, but the background behind the news is, I mean, that's worrying times for Honda. And it's interesting. So over the financial year, which ended in March, Honda suffered a loss of 423 billion yen, which is 2.68 billion. These numbers are worse than during the pandemic years, which is utterly mental. So when you are Aston Martin, it is concerning. 2.68 billion in 1 year loss. I mean, look.
Is there anything in there that suggests where that has come from?
Well, when Honda decided to fully commit to electrification and officially withdrew from Formula 1 at the end of 2021, there was apparently that affected them quite a bit. But yeah, Honda Motorsport announced its financial forecast in March ahead of Thursday's formal announcement. It doesn't really state where it is affected. A lot of it is the EV market. That's where they've lost a lot of revenue from that point of view. Honda's financial results are leading to several strategic changes on the automotive side. First of all, Honda has suspended a planned 11 billion investment to produce EVs and batteries in Canada. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah, and I mean, that's going to be worrying for them as a company, because if they're looking at their endeavours in F1 alongside that, they're probably thinking, Christ, do we even know how to make engines? Have we just completely forgotten how to run a company? And I think it will be interesting to see, how that all ties in with their F1 endeavours. If Honda don't get a hold of this engine issue that they have with Aston Martin, how long do they have? I don't know how it works in terms of contracts, business in F1. So, sorry if you know more and they're not able to get out of this contract. But if you're Aston Martin, how much longer are you giving Honda to turn this around? Because we've said it already, Aston Martin are the laughing stocks of F1 at the moment because they've pumped huge sums of money into this from all ends, infrastructure, team, Adrian Newey, like the whole project is so promising. And then they come to this year and they're awful. And we are led to believe that it's not Aston Martin's fault as such. You know, it comes from an engine issue. At what point do you say, we're going back to Mercedes and we're scrapping this for now?
Well, I'm sure Aston Martin have something in their contract from a performance-based deal that actually, if Honda aren't giving them a performance that they can actually deliver, I'm sure there's something in that contract that would state that they can leave the contract at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be suing them for lying to me. I'd be like, you told me you can make engines. Well, look what you've given us. I just think because it's damaging to Aston Martin's brand as well. Because if you're more of an F1 spectator rather than a fan, you know, people are going to see this and they're going to see Aston Martin and it discredits the brand. But not only that, they're going to struggle for sponsors. Nobody likes supporting a losing team. So they're going to struggle to acquire new fans coming to the sport because, you know, there's being slow and then there's being Aston Martin. You know, they are right back there. So, I think it really damages such a promising project that we are all well behind, you know, especially as two Brits. Aston Martin, iconic British company, you know, car brand. I want nothing more than to see them do well. And I want that for every F1 team because I stand by the fact if we've got 11 teams fighting for P1, we are way better off as fans. And I know that that's not how it works, but yeah, I'd be really, really concerned about my team if I was Lawrence Stroll.
100%. George Russell has irritated Will Buxton. I don't know if you've seen that this week. So following the Miami Grand Prix, there was comments that resurfaced from 2025 where George Russell said there was once a time that if you finished ahead of Lewis Hamilton in the championship or in a race, you would win the race. Or if you'd finished ahead in the championship, you'd win the championship. If my time was 5 years prior, you could argue that I'd have 2 championships in my name. Well, let's just say that irritated Will Buxton because he then came out and said, I saw a quote out of him today saying that if I'd got into Formula 1 5 years earlier, I'd probably have a couple of championships by now. And I fear a level of entitlement there, that he thinks he should naturally be his. Or he is starting to feel that maybe Kimi has come in and overtaken him in pure performance. So there is that frustration in him. Or should I have already been that champion? It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because look, I'm sure there's entitlement in all F1 drivers. You know, you don't go into the sport thinking that you're not capable of winning the World Championship. But there is something with George Russell, and he has had a few little digs over the years, hasn't he, of entitlement.
I also, if George Russell had come into Mercedes in 2021, he's not a part of that championship battle. He's just not. And I love George Russell. And I think he's a great driver. I've also said I believe George Russell is capable of winning a world championship, and I stand by that. George Russell will never be on the level of Max Verstappen or Lewis Hamilton. And what you had in 2021, and for Lewis, you know, 2020, 2019, 2018, we can go back years and years, was a driver who was on a different level to your ordinary excellent driver. So George Russell does not fall into the category of all-time greats. Max Verstappen does. Lewis Hamilton does. He would not have any world championships if he was at Mercedes prior to the ground effect era.
No, it's an interesting one. It is an interesting one.
And
We'll see.
I'm not surprised it rubs people up the wrong way, because it's just, and I get it, because I agree with your point. F1 drivers need a certain amount of arrogance, entitlement, but it is arrogance, because he's essentially saying, well, if I'd come into the sport earlier or got to Mercedes earlier, I'd be a world champion. I would have beaten Sir Lewis Hamilton, the greatest driver of all time. That's a big claim. That is going to rub people up the wrong way, understandably.
Well, also because it's not true. It's not true. We know, look, from 2022, after that, intense battle in 2021, you're telling me, okay, let's talk about 2021. Do you think, right, if George Russell was teammates with Lewis Hamilton that season, he would be up there fighting for a championship alongside Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton? No. There is no way George Russell would have done a better job that season. He would not be fighting for a championship, 100%.
One thing I will say is he would have done a better job as teammate than Valtteri Bottas did.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is, it sounds like a kind of we're insulting George, but it's really not. I think for someone to say that I don't think George Russell is better than Lewis Hamilton, back in 2021, I think that's a pretty fair comment. No, that shouldn't shock anyone, and least of all George Russell.
It's a difficult one. Luke, I don't know if you've heard this though, but Alpine have signed a former FIA person. Michael Massey is back in the sport.
What?
You not heard? Michael Massey. They've hired Michael Massey back.
What do you mean? What's his role at Alpine?
I'm only joking. I'll see your reaction. But however, Alpine have signed someone from the FIA. The FIA's former head of aerodynamics, Jason Summerfield, has now begun his role as deputy technical director at Alpine. He's previously worked at the likes of Williams, Toyota, Renault, and he also did a lot of work on this year's aerodynamics. So for Alpine, I mean, that is a real win there. So having someone who's worked on these, ground effect aerodynamic parts for 2026, that's not a bad appointment.
Yeah, we spoke about Alpine last week. It's
not Michael Massey, by the way.
It's not Michael Massey. They are moving in the right direction, and after a lot of controversy, which has come from a number of different channels, but all really stemming from one Flavio Briatore, you can't argue with the facts. They are moving in the right direction, and he is captaining that ship. So, fair play to him. I've got no idea who this bloke is, but I think you are probably safe to say, based off the results that Alpine have had coming into this new era, you'd say it's probably going to turn out to be a good call.
Yeah, 100%. Got another little quiz for you, Luke. I know you like these, right?
I do.
Most Grand Prix podiums with Ferrari. Okay, I'm going to start off. Michael Schumacher is the one who's got 116. But can you tell me the other four after that? So who's in
So
P2?
this is top five.
Top five.
Top. It probably is Charles. He's been there long enough now. Oh, actually, or it could be Rubens Barrichello.
So Charles Leclerc is fifth with 52 podiums. Rubens Barrichello is third with 55 podiums.
I'd say Sebastian Vettel's probably there.
P2, 55 as well. Who is fourth?
God. I don't think Alonso was there long enough.
No, it's not Alonso.
No, I don't think Kimi Räikkönen. He did have 2 stints there though. That was the thing. Do you know what? Flip it. I'll say Kimi Räikkönen.
Kimi Räikkönen, P4. 52. 52
You see,
well.
I wasn't sure if he had been there long enough, but then I remembered that the stint where he raced along Seb was actually quite fairly lengthy.
Yeah. No, he did all right there. I'm just trying to get something up. Sorry, bear with me a second. Bear with me. While we're doing that, talk about Max Verstappen. What?
This guy, Max Verstappen, never fails to amaze me. He is an absolute freak of nature, and I think this weekend he's doing something. Currently, right, it's 10:40 on Sunday morning, and he's taking part in the Nürburgring 24-hour race. He is. I know it's a team thing, but he's made some unbelievable overtakes, and they are currently 36 seconds in the lead. Is there anything, when it comes to racing, that this man cannot do? He is undeniably the greatest driver alive at this point in time. He is absolutely sensational. And I love the fact that he is a 4-time F1 champion, and he's just rocking up to different GT3 events and absolutely smashing it. I think there's always this thing that you'll notice. A lot of drivers don't always believe that F1 does contain the 20 best drivers or 22 best drivers now in the world. And that may be true. But I think what you can say with absolutely no doubts is that Max Verstappen is the best driver. And
100%. I mean,
he could race in anything and he'll win.
It is such an impressive trait that you can get into any car and perform at that level. There's people out there who race these week in, week out, and Max Verstappen goes, yeah, I fancy trying something different today. Do you mind if I just hop in? And absolutely wipes them. Mental.
Yeah, it's like it's a superpower. It really is. It's and like I just think it's so sick, right? It's like this is such a bad comparison, but the way I think of it, it's like, imagine you go to because I know GT3 is such a high level, like the racing is incredible, but it's like being like Justin Bieber and you just rock up to an open mic night and you just start playing there. Like it gives me that sort of vibes where everyone in the paddock must be like, oh my fucking god, Max Verstappen's here, like what the hell. You know, because they will know Max is a true legend of not just F1 but racing.
Yeah, 100%. He's impressive. Right, Luke, I'm bringing back an old game we used to play, blind ranking F1 drivers. So I'm going to give you 5 drivers. They could be anyone, past and present, okay? You have to tell me where they are. 1 obviously being top, 5 being the lowest. Okay? And one thing you've got to remember with this game is actually you could have a top driver, but they could also be another top driver on that. So
I'm familiar with how it works.
Yeah. All right. So, number 1, Sebastian Vettel.
Sebastian Vettel. We've spoken about him a lot recently when I think we discussed the Fernando Alonso thing.
Yep.
Where people seem to always have these conversations about Fernando Alonso being one of the greats, but I never hear people talking about Sebastian Vettel. You know, 4 world championships in a row. The youngest F1 world champion. He truly was unstoppable for a good period of time, and in a really good era of where we had a lot of good drivers at their peak. You know, you had Lewis Hamilton, Fernando Alonso. It was a really great time of F1, and he was good, and he went to Ferrari, did some great things there. Obviously didn't manage to win anything meaningful, but he had a pretty good stint at Ferrari, as stints at Ferrari go in recent times. And I think Sebastian Vettel I'm going to put him second.
Oh, okay. Right. Sebastian Vettel locks in P2. Alex Albon. And may I just say, I just clicked on blind ranking. I haven't picked any of these. This is what they've been given, okay? Alex Albon.
Alex Albon, put him 4th. I don't think Alex Albon is a great Formula 1 driver. He's never going to be a world champion. I think that's fine. he's one of those drivers that sadly got his big opportunity probably a bit too early. So now he's unlikely to ever get it again.
Yeah.
And I think that is probably a little bit of a nail in the coffin for an F1 driver's career. We'll never truly know. He may be capable of winning a world championship, but I think fourth is pretty reasonable.
Okay. Lance Stroll.
5.
Okay, fine. Sergio Perez.
Okay. Sergio Perez. I know people think I hate his guts for whatever reason. I don't really understand that. I think Sergio Perez had a very successful F1 career. He's obviously come back now with Cadillac and is, it's not the most ideal setup for him and Bottas, but they've obviously brought in 2 experienced drivers for a reason, and it's to help build that team. And I do trust that he is a very good person to have a part of that project.
So just to remind you, you have P1 available and P3.
Yeah, so for me, Sergio Perez is P3, and actually, I'm very happy with how my list is turning out right now.
Okay.
I think that is absolutely fair.
Okay.
I think Sergio Perez is better than the other 2, or has been across his career, but not better than Sebastian Vettel. No way.
Okay, so just to clarify, Sebastian Vettel P2, Sergio Perez P3, Lance Stroll P5, and you've got Alex Albon P4. So whatever name I give you next is your P1, okay?
Yep.
Okay. So your P1 is Logan Sargent.
I knew I should have put Seb P1. And this goes back to the point that I raised. I put Seb P2 because I thought, well, there must be someone better than him coming along. Sebastian Vettel is one of the greats. So I should have put him P1. I made that mistake. Logan Sargent. Okay, right. Would you put Logan Sargent below Lance Stroll?
Yes.
Yeah, no. Okay, even 100%. I would do that. I just wanted to gauge what you would do.
Logan Sargent had an awful time in F1. I mean, it's bad when your teammate crashes and the team principal goes, actually, would you mind just giving him your car? Because we don't believe that you can go and do a good job. But if you could just give him your car, that would be great. That says it all for me.
That's pretty soul destroying, that, isn't it? I mean, the fact that genuinely happened.
It was brutal. So Logan Sargent is your number 1 driver. Impressive. Impressive.
Do you know what? I don't mind that. Logan Sargent is a true legend of the sport and he'll never be forgotten. P1. Yeah.
Right, let's get into some questions from comments. What am I talking about? Crikey. Let's get into some of your comments which you've posted this week on all our social media, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. So this one is interesting. So last week we spoke about Charles Leclerc and why does he get off a bit more lightly than other drivers. Anyway, this guy has gone, Leclerc has been there for 9 years and won 9 races. I believe it's 8 races he's won. But we might have to double check that.
Should I fact check this?
Consistently sent car development down the wrong direction. But yeah, it's Lewis's fault. So yeah, as we know, last week we said obviously Lewis Hamilton gets a lot of stick as well for Ferrari. And was it the right move for Ferrari? And, will he be leaving? But I think that comment's spot on. Charles Leclerc gets let off very lightly. He doesn't get a lot of stick from fans, but he's been there a hell of a long time. And it is 8 races, I believe he's won.
It is 8 races, yeah. And we know that he's bottled a tremendous amount of pole positions from when he started P1. He tends not to hold on to it. We've seen a lot of head losses from him when he has been leading races. I think probably the easiest one to recall is Monza 2022, but I think that 2022 season was a real moment for, I think, fans realizing that perhaps Charles hasn't got it in him to go and win a championship. But we don't know. I mean, Charles Leclerc is an unbelievable driver. But I swear he's too good looking. It gets him off the hook for everything. I think the point was raised last week about how if Lando had done what Charles had done in Miami, we would not hear the end of it. And that's such a valid point. And yeah, he's too good looking. I'm telling you. He could do anything and it would not be wrong.
But interestingly, from that comment, is Charles Leclerc given wrong information to Ferrari? Are they listening too much to Charles Leclerc?
I don't know. I mean, this is hard to tell, isn't it? Because we never know what goes on behind closed doors. We know drivers give feedback. We don't truly know how much input they have in... Not that we don't know how much input they have. We don't know to what extent that input has an effect on the cars. But you could argue that he's never helped them develop a car that has won a championship. But then I don't think that's a driver's responsibility. Like, I really don't. But Lewis definitely gets all the hard time. Oh my God, you see online, something goes wrong with the car, or look, Lewis is pushing the car in the wrong. It's never Charles. He'll never get the stick for it. It's always Lewis.
Yeah. Very lightly.
I think Charles has pretty privilege.
Maybe. This one's an interesting one. So we spoke about George Russell and Kimi Antonelli last week. This guy said, people can say George is a leader, but Toto clearly wants Kimi to be that guy. He gave him Bono for a reason. That's the A side of the garage, and it's a smart decision. I mean, I don't necessarily think it's the A side of the garage. I think they gave Bono to Kimi because Bono's very good at developing drivers. He's good at... But Kimi needed a level-headed person who knows how to win races, how to win championships, and Bono's that person. And I don't think that's necessarily favoriting over George or Kimi. I just think that's actually the right move in giving someone who, with that amount of experience, bringing someone in who has no experience in F1. I think that's a perfect opportunity for that.
I also think George Russell had... I agree with you. I don't think there's an A side and B side of the garage. I think you think that Bono's side of the garage is the A side because it was Lewis Hamilton's side and he won 6 world championships with them. But were they the B side in 2016 when Nico Rosberg won the championship? I don't think there's an A side or a B side. I think George Russell came in to the team when Bono's side of the garage was occupied by Lewis Hamilton. Lewis wasn't going to be like, oh, here, let's swap engineers. And I think George has now built up a relationship for, the best part of 4 years with his team on that side of the garage. I don't think George will be thinking, oh, I need to swap, I need that side of the garage. I think he'll be happy with his relationships. And I believe if he wasn't, he would have demanded that side of the garage, and I believe he probably would have got it.
100%. This whole Fernando and Lewis thing, right? So Fernando is a better driver. It's
not still going on.
Mate, it is. Fernando is a better driver. Lewis definitely more successful. You guys seem to forget that F1 is a motorsport and normally the fastest car wins.
So we're back to that argument again. The weakest argument in the history of F1 arguments. In that case, Max, Nicholas Latifi is quicker than Max Verstappen. He just didn't have the fastest car. You could make that argument for absolutely everyone. I think the fastest drivers end up in the fastest car. It's no surprise that Lewis Hamilton gravitated towards the team that ended up being quickest through the turbo hybrid era. It's no surprise that Max Verstappen was at Red Bull when they had the best car and he won 4 world championships. The same with Sebastian Vettel, Michael Schumacher. The best drivers always find the best car. It's a match like that. It comes together. So it's just it's a bad argument. Fernando Alonso is a great driver. He's not part of the conversation when it comes to Lewis Hamilton.
Agreed. This one is funny, okay, because it's laughable. So Max Verstappen is truly that guy. But even as a Max fan, I got to say that the driver that can rival Verstappen, if on similar or equal machinery, would be Charles Leclerc. No. No. That's a poor take. That's a poor take.
I think at this point, because Max is really in the peak of his, and I'd love to be proved wrong here. I think even Lewis in equal machinery at this point would be outperformed by Max Verstappen, which is really painful to say, and I pray that I'm wrong. But Max Verstappen is just, he's the best, and equal machinery, he beats everyone.
Yeah, and Charles, I don't think has the. I don't think he has it in him to week in, week out challenge someone like Max Verstappen.
Yeah, I think Max has got that mentality advantage that on a lot of drivers, that killer winner mentality that we saw from Lewis over years and years. We've seen it basically from Lewis his whole career, and Max has got that. And I think, Charles perhaps lacks that. Charles has got the pace. I think Charles is like lightning quick, but again, I don't understand how these drivers find their way into conversations with drivers who are so clearly in a different league.
Yeah, agreed. As we know, it is race week. Sorry, you were saying?
No, I was just going to say, it goes back to the point about, it's not even insulting to drivers. If you say to Charles Leclerc, you are not as good as Max Verstappen, that's not an insult. People take that as like, Charles is, you're dissing Charles. It's like, no, I'm praising Max. That's saying how good Max is, not how bad Charles is.
100%, yeah. As we said, it is race week. Canada. So here's the timings. I'll break it down for you, shall I? Friday, FP1 is 5:30 until 6:30. Then we got sprint qualifying, 9:30 until 10:14. It is in a sprint race on Saturday, 5 till 6. Qualifying in the evening, 9 till 10. And the race on Sunday is 9 o'clock. I like it.
I like it. I love an evening race. Oh no.
Bless you. Bless you.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, I just got the sneezes. I was kind of saddened that Miami was brought forward, because actually, I do like an evening race. I think they're nice. But I'm really looking forward to it. I think for just a number of reasons. I think we really are in this development race at this point in time, and it is changing. We saw Ferrari, definitively the second quickest team, but able to race the Mercedes until the Mercedes eventually got in front. They've now lost that advantage. McLaren have now come into it. Red Bull have fought their way back. Now Mercedes might not be the quickest team, but when we bring upgrades in Canada, what's that going to look like? And I just think it's an exciting period.
It's all the unknown, isn't it? Completely unknown.
Yeah.
Who's your top 3 for this weekend's race?
Wow, now this gets tough. This really does. I think, God, like Kimi Antonelli, he's on fire. And if they bring upgrades, but George Russell, he's going to come back at Kimi Antonelli. There's no way Kimi walks away with this. And are we going to see, the McLarens there? I'm going to go George Russell to win.
Ooh.
I think George Russell. Huh?
You think he's back?
I don't think he was ever gone. I think George will be strong around Canada. I think the Mercedes will be strong around Canada. Yeah, so I'm going to go George Russell, Kimi Antonelli, and Oscar Piastri.
Nice. I'm going to go Kimi, Oscar, George.
Yeah, so you think Kimi's going to do it again?
I think he's just got the confidence at the moment. I think he's got the confidence. I think he's the guy in form, and I think as he's in form, it'd be silly not to try and back him.
No, I don't think it's a bad call. I mean, look, if you say I think Kimi Antonelli's going to win the race, no one's going to call you an idiot. It's but I just, as we were discussing that, I had a question come to mind.
Yeah.
If Lewis Hamilton hadn't have left Mercedes and he came into 2026 in Kimi's seat, which would be his seat, who's leading the championship at this point in time?
Oh, it'd be close. It would be close because those two would have known it. They know each other. They know how they race. They worked together for the last 3 years. I think Lewis would just edge it, but I wouldn't completely write off George. I think it'd be very close.
Yeah, I think in the same way, I think if you write off George now, it'd be silly. I think you'd be silly if you wrote off Lewis Hamilton in a car that is fighting at the front. Yeah, I think it'd be close. I think Lewis would just be ahead, but I think it's too hard to tell because we truly don't know where Lewis's capabilities lie. You know, everyone talks about Lewis dropping off and he's not as good as he once was, blah, blah, blah. We haven't seen Lewis Hamilton fight where he's used to fighting. If he was at the front of the pack, I do think we'd see a different beast. But
we need to see him in a competitive car again. And when I mean competitive, I mean a championship winning car.
Yeah, because also let's not forget, like the first 2 races of the season, we were all talking about how Lewis is back. You know, because he looks quick. He had a couple of great races, and I think we can't forget that. You know, I think if he is fighting for something important, he comes alive.
Yeah, 100%. Right, do let us know on that. That is the end of the podcast. We'll be back next week reviewing the Canadian Grand Prix, but it's race week. I'm buzzing. I've actually got it right this week, which is nice, so I haven't given you false hope. But yeah, check us out on all social media, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. Go and subscribe, follow us. I really appreciate it. And yeah, we shall see you next week for a brand new podcast. Bye-bye.